5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fire. The only thing we have to fear is fear.
Mile 18.
This is Endurance Nation.
Free resource alert. Did you know that Endurance Nation created the 4 keys of racing execution? That's right, the seminal framework that people use to put structure into an otherwise unorganized and chaotic race day. We created it back in 2009. I've been honing that process ever since across all manner of sport and work as well. Our athletes use it in all aspects of their lives. It's an opportunity for you to use a framework that boils down the most complex situations into critical steps that you can follow and prepares you for the challenges that exist on race day. We have this framework. It's available for you. It's free. You can actually go online. If you go to endurancenation.us/4 keys, that's all written out, FOUR keys. You'll get an opportunity to download a free resource that explains the 4 keys to you, including a video from me, Coach Patrick, outlining how you can use it and opportunities to access even deeper resources down the line. This is your chance to break out of the chaos. If you've had bad races, messed up races, made simple mistakes, really wish when you cross the finish line that you can get that 30 minutes back, now you can. Plan ahead. Get the 4 keys at endurancenation.us/4 keys.
Endurance Nation.
Hey there, Coach Patrick here with another podcast. This time we're going audio-only version as I update you on my DNF at Vermont Overland this past weekend. This is part of a race execution series where we highlight some of the core components of putting together a great race. And the TLDR of this episode is that poor preparation set me up for a DNF. And I didn't even know it, right? The DNF you didn't even know was coming. And the worst part is you did it to yourself. So the short story is went to Vermont Overland. For those of you who don't know, it's 55 miles, 7,500 feet of climbing, several class 4 sections of road. Class 4 gravel is kind of like a riverbed with like big rocks thrown in. It's a Caesar salad of dirt with big rock croutons. It's pretty rough. And the uphill parts are hard to keep traction on, particularly where those class 4 sections become little class 4 brooks or rivers where things are wet. And they're just as hard going down because of the terrain. I was going great, having a great race through about mile 21 or 26, I should say, which is just under the halfway point, but was at the halfway point of the climbing, basically. It was the highest point of the course. Had just gotten done climbing that, was feeling really good in a good group. On a tough descent, I made the decision to pass 2 slower riders who were just kind of following the A-line, weaving through the rocks. I decided to stay straight, follow a mountain biker, and caught a front flat and couldn't fix it. So many things happened here. And what ended up happening was I tried to fix it with a plug. The plug didn't work. So I went to pump it. I couldn't get the pump to work. Tried to put on the CO2. The CO2 broke. So I said, I'm going to put a tube in. I put the tube in, pumped it up by hand, and then the tube failed. Sounds pretty ordinary, right? Like sounds like just a bad day, bad luck day. But the reality is there's no luck involved in this equation. It was all me. And here's how really the problem unfolded. And again, a testament to good race preparation. So all year, my tires have been hard to pump up because there's goop in the valves. For those of you who don't know, I have tubeless. And so there's basically like a tubeless mount that you put to your rim. You screw it down pretty tight, and then you'll thread the valve in, the Presta valve into the actual the receptacle, and then you'll pump up from there, right? That allows you to put the sealant in through that tube, and then put the valve in later on, right? So then the valve is clean. Well, my valve wasn't clean. I had assumed that it was actually blocked on the tire side where there was some sealant piled up, but it turns out that actually that wasn't the real case. It turns out that the real case for the reason for the clog was, and I only found this later in my postmortem, was that the actual Presta valve had gotten some sealant in it. I didn't know that at the time. So I spent Friday night, took the tires off, opened them up, cleaned out as best as I could, what I could get out of them. But they were still kind of hard to pump up, but it was better-ish, put some more sealant in there and was like, I'm just going to roll with what I got. This is what I got. Well, fast forward to the issue. And so I'm riding, I get this front flat. So I pull over. Well, actually, let me give you a little more context. About 5 miles earlier, having just climbed a different class 4 section, was rolling along in a flat section, went to grab my hydration straw, and just got booted off the bike. Like literal, not a pedal strike, but something. Turned my wheel and went flying in the woods. So I just found myself in the woods all of a sudden. I was like, oh my God. Made sure I had everything, got on the bike and went going, but I'm sure probably was a little disoriented after that crash, which was part of the compounding factor for the series of things that are about to happen. So I get this front flat 5 miles later coming down. I pull over on the downhill. Everyone's being super nice. You good? Do you need help? Etc., which is wonderful. And I'm like, no, I'm okay. Do your thing. These people are really racing. We're in the top 100 of the race. So I was like, hey, keep going. So I pull over and I'm like, oh, I can see that I've got a flat tire here, and I can see that there's some sealant coming out of my tire. It appears to be the sidewall, which is where it did end up cutting. And the rim actually took a good ding as well. I've subsequently filed that down. So I pull over and I'm like, oh, I've got to put some air in this tube, So I pull out my pump. My hand pump is the easiest. So I pull out the hand pump and I start trying to pump, and I can't pump because the valve, the Presta valve, has got the gunk in it again because I didn't exchange them for new ones, which I should have totally done. So I was like, oh my God, I can't get the air in with this hand pump. I've been using a floor pump. So I was like, I know what I'll do. I'll use the CO2. So go back to the pocket, get the CO2, the adapter, put those things together, put it on the tire, loosen it up, pow! The little ring that goes around the Schrader valve, the Presta valve to hold it on, blows out of the device. So now I can no longer use the CO2. And it's dead. So I can't use the CO2 thing now because my adapter is gone. And I can't get air in through the valve. So I'm like, oh, valve is done. This is done. What I've got to do now is, and I had, previous to this, I had plugged the hole. So I took a dart, which is a plastic dart, looks like a lawn dart basically, but with a cloth in the back. So I jammed that plastic into the tire. It's like a little dart. And the cloth hung out. So hopefully now it's going to hold it and then use the air. No joy. So I'm like, okay, well, I've got to take this off now and put a tube in. So error one was not changing those valves, so running into it with a problem, because that would have been an easy solve right there. Put some air into it, force the sealant out the hole seals, and I'm off and riding again in like 4 or 5 minutes, right? Great. No, that doesn't work. So I've got to take the front tire off the bike now and put the tube in my back pocket. Get the tube out, blow it up a little bit with air, and then put the tube in, close the tire up inside there, pump it up by hand. It seems good, like good pressure. It takes a couple minutes to do it. I'm ready to rock and roll, great. And then not like 10 minutes later, I'm like, oh, my front tire's flat. I'm like, that's weird. I must have a slow leak. So I pump it up again. It holds for like 10 minutes, slowly. Pump it up again, 8 minutes, pump it up again, 5 minutes. Pretty soon I'm just pumping. At this point, I'm like, I'll just do the ride. And then after like the 12th time, I was like, I can't. It doesn't hold any aim or I'm done. So I come home to do my postmortem because you just don't want to walk away from that bad weekend. I take the front tire, I take it apart, I start looking at everything, I check the hole, I check the dart and everything, and I'm looking for, I still haven't figured this out, I'm looking for where I have this hole in the tube. Like, how did the tube go wrong? Was there something else, or was there something sharp? Yeah, of course there was something sharp. I look at the valve and I'm like, oh, the hole seems to be over here. You know what the hole was? It was the plastic dart that I'd put in myself, that I jammed in there. What I needed to have done before I put the tube in was to pull the plastic dart all the way through. Not sure I could have done it with my bare hands on the side of the road, but I could have probably used a multi-tool and figured out how to get some leverage. But I should have pulled that dart all the way through because it's a plastic dart. And me riding on it, sure enough, it blew the tube. So I sabotaged myself early by not taking care of my equipment on the valve so I could just use regular inflation. And then I sabotaged myself later by not being smart and paying attention to the dart and taking it off. So theoretically, I could have avoided the first problem with just some good pre-race hygiene and just general good bike hygiene, because I would have been screwed whether it was a race or not a race. And then I got myself the second time with my backup because I forgot to take out the plastic dart because I hadn't done it before. So, I was really positive about the whole thing. It is what it is. I was racing, I was being aggressive, etc. But I'm not going to lie, I'm a little frustrated that looking back on it, I totally did this to myself. I am my own worst enemy. And I share this with you for a reason, right? I've done tons of 30 plus Ironman races, Kona. I've done gravel races. I've done Steamboat. I've done Leadville, all over the world, all sorts of stuff. And like bad luck happens. Like sometimes things go wrong. But in the case of what happened to me at Overland, it just goes to show that actually the majority of things that go against you are things that are 50-50 elements. Now, if you've got your race game on, you've got race brain on, you're good. You can make the decision and the odds will tip in your favor. If you don't, if you haven't done the maintenance on the bike, if you haven't prepped your equipment, if you haven't actually gone through mentally the process of changing a flat, when push comes to shove, you're not going to be able to do it. Or at least, even if you are able to do it, you're not going to be able to do it as well as you could have because you are not in the mindset. You don't have the process baked into your DNA about what you want to do. So when we talk about race prep and we talk about finding excellence and putting things together, what we're really talking about here is creating a system that you can operate because systems can be improved, right? You can make better or worse decisions, but if you're positioned correctly, then decision-making isn't a problem because, for example, if I had positioned myself with better valves and clear valves, then decision-making was sort of like pump or no pump. Very easy decision, yes or no, right? It's not how do I fix this valve problem when I don't have any of these valves or not even a spare valve. So what did I learn out of this? Well, A, not just those lessons that I told you right there, but B, what other equipment do I need to have? And this is part of my race postmortem. So I definitely need to have one or two Schrader valves that I've got in my sort of spare box here. So I can always undo a valve, put a new valve in if I have to, right? I need to have a backup CO2. I should always have two CO2. They're so tiny. I can fit them in my pocket or fit them on my bike somewhere. It's like zero cost to having that CO2 for sure. I need to mentally rehearse the tire changing process, especially if I'm going to continue using the dart. If I use the bacon strips, which are just little threads that you push in one by one or mold or two by two, however they work out to be because you fold them in half, then that's not a big deal and I should be okay. But if I'm going to continue using the dart, I'm going to need a process that's going to allow me to be sort of really on the ball with that, so I don't mess up that piece again. And then also, I've resolved that I'm also going to, in the future, decide right away. The first decision when I pull over is, do I need to take this tire off, yes or no? And I have to eyeball that because I tried to fix it with my tire on the bike and I took stuff out. And by the time I came back and needed to fix it again, I had all my equipment out. It was in my hands, and then taking the tire off was a problem. And it was not clean at all. And so actually the step-by-step process I took in that position was rougher. And, no surprise. I mean, I'm on the side of a gully in the middle of the woods. So it's not like the side of the road where you can put stuff on the floor and find it again. There's just nothing really there for me to find. So big lessons here for me and hopefully for you as well, that a good preparation matters and sets you up for success. That in race, slow is smooth is fast, making good decisions and taking your time. Sometimes even like verbally calling it out. Like, I'm going to put the tube in now. I've checked the edges. If I had run my fingers around the tire, I would have felt the dart, but I didn't because I was being dumb. Like, there's just no two other ways about it. I was just in a rush and messed that up. So some basic procedural steps, a checklist in my mind for how I'm going to handle this in the future will go a long way. So I've actually written that checklist out so I have it. I can go through it mentally and actually go through it probably in training again at some point in time. In the meantime, I've ordered more CO2. I've ordered the equipment I need. I've ordered new tires because my tires were old anyway and needed some love, and new valves. So I'll be good with those as well. So remember, every race is an opportunity to learn. Sometimes you have the finish line and you process your lessons learned with a beer and some good stories with friends. Other times, well, maybe you don't make it to the finish line and you get some good lessons learned either way. Racing, for me, is all about testing myself. And while sometimes it's about my aerobic conditioning and my strategy, other times it's just about my preparation. Still a test, and while I may not have gotten a high score on the day, I definitely have done some of the extra credit work, and I'm looking forward to coming back, putting a new race together, and having a great one. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you've had a terrible DNF or just bad race day decision-making get you down, let me know. Hit me on the socials. Tell us on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn or wherever you find us, or on our YouTube channel as well. I'll be happy to talk to you. Have a great week.
Endurance Nation.
Product of the week is our Race Saver bag. Stay cooler, race faster. Have you ever been in a race? You pass an aid station and then you can't wait for the next aid station. As a runner, you're just craving it. Even though they're only a mile apart on the road, it seems that each one is getting further and further apart. What if you could take the ice that you had at that last aid station and carry it with you? Not in a cup, not clinking around, but in a handy bag on your wrist. That, my friends, is the Race Saver bag. It takes advantage of your physiology where your body generates a protein that actually signals to your brain that you're cooling off. It happens in the core of your hand. Professional athletes use this, and now you can too. You can't race in the heat without managing your core temperature, and now you can. It's the Race Saver bag, and you can find it online at www.mile18inc.com/race saver. That's mile18inc.com/race saver, all one word. You can get your bag now. Hey, get two. Share one with your friend or your loved one so you make sure they also have the race of their life. You don't slow down, and you make everyone else jealous out there on the race course. Get a Race Saver.
For more information about Endurance Nation, visit us online at endurancenation.us. The provided music is from the Podshow Podsafe Music Network. Check it out at music.podshow.com.